Welcome to the Mike on Much podcast. I'm your host, and I'm here with my friend and trusty producer all the way back from Europe, Max Kerman. Max, what's going on?
I'm back.
Not joining us right now is our pop culture aficionado, Shane Cunningham, because he literally just became a papa culture aficionado.
It's crazy.
He's got a little baby Lucy, so he's back in Hamilton.
Being a dad.
It's the miracle of life.
Yeah, something like that.
We wish him, Alex, and Lucy all the best. Check them out.
Where?
ShanyBoy69 at Instagram or This Family Tree.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you can follow their journey, man. It's all happening. It's magical.
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy, man, that people are having kids now.
I know. It really feels like we're in the next chapter of things. I think I'm desperately trying to hold on to the previous chapter.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. I feel like you're the most maybe Peter Pan of all of our friends.
Yeah, well, I justify it to myself because I'm younger. I'm a little younger than the rest of you guys.
That's true.
Even though not really, like a couple years younger.
Yeah.
But Lauren is 6 years younger than me.
Right.
So in my mind, I'm like, I'm younger than those guys. And then Lauren is that much younger than me that I feel like I have some time. And so I'll do the thing. I'm like, well, when Mike was my age or when Shane was my age or when any of the Champagne girls were Lauren's age, they weren't doing any of this stuff. So I feel like I have a little bit of time to play with. But I will say I'm kind of going to like officially be in Toronto starting now because Lauren is at U of T doing nursing and sort of breaking up. I can get into that a little bit. Sorry. The place where I live in Hamilton.
People will still be able to put that together.
Yeah.
Should I just bleep it?
Yeah, whatever.
Let's not give everybody your home address in Hamilton. You've already been robbed once that you've talked about on this pod.
That's true. It was just a podcast, man. Because Greg, your brother's moving in with his
lady.
gal,
That's right. My brother's moving out of your place.
And Simple Al is moving. Did you know about this?
I just heard this last night.
Yeah,
I
moving
can't
in
believe
with
Simple
Bobus.
Al's moving.
Yeah. So the changes are happening. But it's interesting because I'm moving into this place in Toronto. We need to outfit it because there's now a spare room that's going to be turned into a living room, which means we have to buy stuff.
Yeah.
And I think just in my personality and the nature of my work is I just don't really care about my home very much.
You're not there that often.
First of all, I'm not there very often. And even if I was there a lot, I don't think I'd care that much.
Totally.
And so I called you yesterday.
Yeah.
I think I was like looking for advice among other things, but I was just like, yo, like Lauren's really excited to make the place great. And she's a homebody. She loves being comfortable at home and having things look nice.
Yeah.
And having it feel like just really kind of like home.
Totally.
And so I was like, okay, we have to go to the mall and buy a new couch and frames to put on the wall and this and that and this and that. What do I do? And you said basically just put down the credit card and just get it over with.
Some conversations are meant for off the podcast, my friend.
Well, but it was a really good piece of advice. You're just like, yo, it's important to her. So, and you got to carry your fair share and just do it.
If she likes, making the home a home and stuff like that, and like we're not naturally inclined to have a strong opinion on a couch or like a fucking cabinet or something.
Or like towels. I don't give a fuck. I just don't care.
Does it dry me?
Yeah.
We're good.
Yeah, we're good.
But I found that it's like, you still got to go. Go to the mall.
Of
Spend
course.
some time.
So
Take
I did.
some interest.
Lauren actually gave me props for putting on a brave face and pretending to smile at stuff and looking engaged. She was like, Max, I know you didn't care about it, but I applaud you for your fake effort. But yeah, because when our friend Dan Hamilton was before he found a place in your building.
That's right.
He was going from Airbnb to Airbnb. And every 3, 4, 5 days, he had a new place, basically. And he wasn't bothered by it. I was like, this is kind of a cool life. Like, that kind of living with a bindle lifestyle is totally fine with me.
It suits you.
Yeah.
But now you're settling down.
Yeah.
So how excited is Lauren then to be moved? Are you the first, dude she's ever lived with?
Yeah. So she's very excited about it.
Is this the first time you've ever lived alone with a woman?
We don't talk about that. And
okay, all right.
Yeah, so but I'm excited, and it's gonna be nice to be in the neighborhood near my folks, near my sister, all that good stuff. But we just got back from London, and we had a great, basically, week with Webmaster Dan.
Webmaster Dan's in the house. Webby D, what's up?
Webby D was awesome company. He flew over, and we hung out in Oxford. He joined us there, and then we reconnected a couple days later in London.
Nice.
And
who drank more, Webby D or you?
Webby D was no. You know what? So on tour, I don't usually drink much because, I'm in a routine. My roommate on tour is Nick, and Nick doesn't drink at all. Nick is basically like a monk. He's Yeah.
Just poring over baseball stats.
Pouring over baseball stats, not really eating or drinking anything. And occasionally getting into arguments with people in the van. And that's sort of the way he
That's
lives.
what he's conserving his energy for. It's like, I can't be hungover if I'm going to be a contrarian to everyone in the group.
That's right, exactly.
Yeah.
And but when Dan joined the party and manager Ash came, we had a great time in London. There's some people you really have to babysit, and there's some people who you can just say like, hey, I got to go somewhere, and I'll see you in 6 hours at this random location, and they'll just get themselves there.
Yeah.
Dan's the latter. Very easygoing, very just helpful. He was doing social media for Arkells, just a true team player as we know him to be. And it was fun too because Dan is a big Frank Turner fan. So to see his joy, watching Frank from side stage and getting to document a bit made me very happy. One of the things about the tour is, especially when you're a band that has to be together all the time, you realize that everyone's kind of on their phones all the time. Even though we do talk to each other a lot, we do get into good spirited arguments with each other. We also spend a lot of time just staring at our phones. Within the band, there is kind of a differing kind of philosophy on how much we should use your data when you're overseas.
Sure.
So for instance, Mike kind of keeps his data off. He doesn't even want you to send him photos if he's roaming because I think he bought like a $75 plan. Nick, I think a little bit more. Everyone else has various degrees. I don't want to change my habits at all. So I got you've reached $200 in over. You've reached $300. You've reached $400. You've reached $500 in overages. And I was just like, I don't give a fuck. I was like, I'm going to you always tell yourself, I'm going to call in and bitch out the people on the other line about these overages and demand that you're going to say you're going to leave and never going to come back to the company.
And they'll give you like half back or something.
Yeah. And sometimes it happens. Sometimes it doesn't. But I just didn't care. But anyway, so I am kind of addicted to my phone. Though I did buy a book saying how to break up with your phone, so I've been reading that. Some
interesting.
Tips about how not to be so addicted to your phone.
Can you hit us with the final tally on what you spent?
I don't know. I try not to look at any bills in my life. I just send them right to my accountant.
Do you think it will be like under 1,000?
Maybe just.
Wow.
Yeah.
Go on.
But anyway, so I don't know. The subjects of phones came up. And charging phones, because as you know, I'm always looking for a charger. I came in and charged my phone.
You're at 80%, you get nervous.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But then Webmaster Dan did point out that a particularly low point of my addiction was at the Vancouver Junos when we were going to interview the legendary Bob Rock. And I walked into the room, Bob's sitting there kind of like by himself, and I'm supposed to make conversation as the producer as you are trying to set up the actual recording apparatus. And I kind of just ignore him, and I'm just sort of looking around the room for a plug, and he's sort of trying to make conversation. I'm like, yeah. Do you know where this is a plug? And there's like one plug in this fucking room, and it's like on the floor, and he's like, and then it's not working, and I have to try and do another one. Anyway, my one job as the producer that doesn't actually produce anything is to make the guests feel kind of like at ease.
Yeah.
And I kind of did the opposite of it. And I'm sorry to everybody that I work with.
And Webmaster Dan brought this up to you?
Yeah. So Webmaster Dan was like, yeah, Max, I don't want to call you. And by the way, Dan is not the kind of guy to like point flaws in people. Like Dan is like such a complimentary guy.
Yeah.
So the fact that like Webmaster Dan, who is only the most like sort of cheering on team building kind of guy, like pointed that out in me, I took it very seriously, and it really did point to my addiction.
It made you feel like you have a problem.
Yeah, totally.
We'll get you through it.
Yeah, thanks guys.
How much Frank time did you get one-on-one?
Not much actually, just because he was really busy. The thing about Frank Turner is that guy, if you think of me as sort of like a busybody, kind of likes to keep my schedule pretty jam-packed, Frank Turner, I'm not exaggerating, is like 10 times me.
Interesting.
Like he has never said no to an interview. It seems like he'll give time to like the BBC and NME and the Guardian, but also like the 19-year-old with a blog. So it's very commendable, like the way he works.
Yeah, because you're probably the most proactive person I know that is
Yeah.
a busybody. And speaking of that, I went to lunch with Justin Stockman today.
Oh, you did?
Who's our patron saint when it comes to this podcast.
Oh, no, I want to hear all about it.
Yeah, he's got some interesting ideas for the future.
Oh, good. Okay.
Yeah.
We'll save that for off air.
That's right. But we'll leave that teasing.
Yeah. But probably the most fun night I think we had was our final night in London. We played our own headline show. And then as part of the deal, we DJ'd afterward. And it was so funny because the whole band stuck around. We all kind of got wasted.
I saw visuals of this on Instagram story.
Yeah.
And I don't think I've ever seen you guys collectively have more fun.
Yeah, it was
like off the stage.
And so I think what we have to do more often is these DJ sets where the 5 of us just like put on our favorite songs, and like Tim was dancing around the stage. Anthony was like getting in the crowd and dancing with people.
I love it.
It was wicked.
You guys are like the new Down with Webster.
That's not a bad thing.
That was their business model.
Yeah.
They would go play a gig in a city, and then they would do like the after party DJ thing.
Well, that's Frank Turner even does that.
Yeah.
He'll do like 10 interviews, play a 2-hour show, and then go DJ.
Hey,
so
man.
Anyway, look out for an Arkells DJ set coming to a bar near you. It's gonna be good.
I like it.
What about you? Give me the goods.
Man, I haven't been up to, like, obviously my beloved Raptors flamed out in pretty remarkable fashion in the fact that the whole world started calling our city Lebronto.
Yeah. It's always so funny when I'm not in the same city as you and you're going through like the ups and downs of being a Raptors fan as you are. And I could just tell on social media or on our Facebook message groups when you're in a good space and then when you're not in a good space. So it's like one night on tour, I'll be away and I'll see you post something on Instagram and you're like, this is my brother. He is kind and beautiful. I'm like, Mike is wasted right now. Because when you start using the word kind, like I just know you're just like in that like loving mood, and like and the Raptors definitely just like won that night. And you're just like, I love the world. And then the nights when they lose, you usually have about a 3 or 4 paragraph long Facebook rant in our basketball group where you really get into the details.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nothing moves me for positive and negative quite like those fucking Raptors.
Yeah, those fucking Raptors.
So, I saw them go down without much of a fight. Dwayne Casey lost his job.
Yeah.
What did you think about his goodbye letter?
I loved it.
It was phenomenal.
Yeah. Pure class, that guy.
He's the best.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hope he lands somewhere well. But I do think it was time for him to go.
Yeah. I agree.
Which I posted on my Facebook after having a few drinks.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was going on. I saw a old school Hamilton band, the Marble Index.
Yes. Tell me about that reunion.
It was great. All the Champagne Boys came out. Like, we had a proper Saturday night. Like, everybody was there. It was great.
And
I mean, you guys were in town. Shane was having a baby,
but the Marble Index like were kind of like the Hamilton band in the mid-aughts, probably.
Yeah.
And they had I think they had a major label deal.
Absolutely.
And they had songs on the radio.
They're great tunes, man.
And Brad, the singer-songwriter in that band, he's very talented.
Absolutely, man. Like, Same School is an amazing song.
Yeah.
All That I Know.
Actually, Spirits
as well. Oh my God, how am I missing this connection? So for you listeners who have listened to 100 episodes of us, the little track that plays, a little snippet, as we go into interview, which you will hear today when we go into Richard Reed Parry and Marika Shaw, is actually the band Spirits, which is
his follow-up band.
Fronted by Brad Germain. That was the band he did after. And it's a song called Open the Door.
Yeah.
And when he came out with that band after Marble Index had sort of dissolved, I fucking loved it. It was like an EP they had, like a 5-song EP. It was great.
Really good tunes.
But that's the tune that we play going into every interview. So, Brad, anyway, went saw Marble Index. Our good friend Jules showed up with our good friend Jay Kelly and their wives. And we were all hanging out. And somehow the conversation got into like when you have the sex talk with your parent.
Okay.
So everybody was sort of sharing these moments and like, like, oh, Jules, did, Sally have a talk with you? Did Brent have a talk with you? And everybody's sort of sharing these stories. And it got to me, and I was like, I'll never forget when I finally had the sex talk with my dad. I said, you really need to start using protection.
Good work.
Thank you. But the thing is, I had the joke almost within like 30 seconds of the conversation. Yeah. And so I was just kind of waiting for it to get to me. It made Sam laugh a lot. Yeah, and that made me happy because I like it when Sam has a good laugh. That's it. Like, I mean, that's really all I got. I don't have a ton. I feel like we need to do some live-in over the next week.
Yeah.
So that when we get to next episode, we really we got some good stories.
Okay, well, I'll make that. I'll call up Dan Hamilton. I say tonight we got to get some good shit for the pod.
The man has lots of stories.
Yeah.
I just don't know how many he'll let us tell. I feel like every time we talk about him, we have to cut it out.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Okay, but today on the show, Maxi Boy, we have Richard Reed Parry from the Arcade Fire and Marika Shaw, who used to be in Arcade Fire. She toured with them. She played strings for them. And now she runs Plus One, which is their huge charity.
Yeah, so it's we know Marika because Arkells work with Plus One. It's $1 on top of every ticket sold, and it's kind of an infrastructure for any band who is interested to be a part of. If they want to choose a charity that they're excited and passionate about, Plus One will help administer kind of all the back end stuff. And the model was sort of, I think, more or less invented by Arcade Fire. She was in the band. Now her full-time job is working in charity and organization building. Her expression is compassion is contagious. And so kind of building a world for bands to spread a message of positivity and generosity. And it's really good. And anyway, so Marika runs that full time. Arcade Fire has donated a ton of time and money to Doctors Without Borders in Haiti. And Richard Reed Parry, who is a guitarist, multi-instrumentalist in the band, we actually have a funny little connection. I don't know did we talk about in the interview?
Oh, you do?
Oh, with Ben Whiteley?
Yeah, and then you go deep on Toronto neighborhoods.
Oh, we did. That's right.
I left it in the interview.
So you'll hear all about it. Yeah, but a good friend of mine, Ben Whiteley, who I played baseball with and who is a great musician. He's a bassist and he plays with lots of great local musicians. He and Richard Reed Parry know each other from childhood as well. So it's cool.
Yeah, I mean, this was an interesting interview for a few reasons. So this happened at JUNO weekend, and I believe it happened on the Sunday of the show.
Yeah.
So there's sound check going on. We're in like a concourse area at GM Place, and everybody was sound checking, including you. You actually have to leave halfway through this interview to go do your sound check for the Junos that night.
Yeah, manager Ash comes up, she's like, we got to go right now.
Yeah, you'll hear this, everybody, when you listen to the interview, but it's fascinating. But obviously at JUNO weekend, we talked about this. You go out every night, and it's like some of these places are open bar things until 3 or 4 in the morning. And I was out having a good time hanging out with JUNO-nominated director Mark McMorris and his wife, and we were getting drinks, having a good time. It's about like 1:50 in the morning, and I'm going hard, and manager Ash is like, hey, Mikey, don't forget, you have to interview Mark McMorris, Olympic gold medalist.
Yeah.
Mark McMorris at 10 a.m. tomorrow. But no one had sent. I didn't know that. You didn't tell me, Maxie.
Oh, sorry.
So I was like, what? And she's like, yeah, you have an interview at 10. I'm like, where? She's like, at the jam place. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Like, yeah. But I'm already fucking drunk. So I'm like, man, like, I got to be up in a couple hours to like prep for this interview.
Yeah.
And she's like, okay. And I'm like, well, thanks for setting it all up, Ash. And she leaves, and I turn to Myers, and I'm like, well, I don't know. I'm like, I got an interview pretty soon. I should probably go back to the hotel. And right then the server comes up and she's like, anything more? And I look at Myers and his wife and I go, I'll get another round. So I was like, we did that. I got home. I got up super early. I remember you called the nut because I was staying in his room.
Yeah, well, because I called you and you didn't pick up.
Yeah.
And then I was like, okay, this I can understand. Mike got the word late. I probably didn't do the good producer job and let him know this interview was even happening until he was half in the bag. So then I was like, okay, I'm going to call the nut to see if he can wake up Mike, give him an elbow. Turns out you were in the shower, I think.
I was on it, man.
You're on it. So then we get there and we're waiting around for Mark McMorris. Everything's a little touch and go because Sundays is when they do dress rehearsal. So they run the whole show. So we're waiting around for Mark McMorris. We're hoping Richard and Marika are available to talk to us. We don't know exactly what's what. And then we hear word from Mark McMorris's people.
He's canceled.
Yeah.
Are you going to tell the real story?
Yeah, he canceled because he was too hungover.
It was like Mark McMorris is puking somewhere right now. He's not going to be able to make the interview.
Which was the best, which was the most snowboard dude thing to do.
Oh, my goodness.
It made me like him more, to be honest.
It made me laugh, too, just because I'm like, birds of a feather, man.
Yeah, that's
like,
right.
I hear you, brother.
Yeah.
If I was the one being interviewed, I might not have showed up either.
Yeah, exactly.
But then Marika and Richard were kind enough to give us their time. I think Ash made this happen. Was it? Or you have a connection with Marika as well.
Marika's a friend, but Ash.
Because we were going to hook up with her in Montreal during Osheaga.
That's right.
So I'm glad we finally got to talk to him. We hit on all sorts of stuff. The formation of Arcade Fire, how that all came together, how Marika joined the band, how they got the charity off the ground. We talked about SNL, their latest performance. Yeah. All of them sort of appearing in the sketch, the Canadian sketch with Bill Hader. And just, it's an interesting conversation, and it spans a lot of stuff. But before we get to that, guys, we want to let you know, we've had a big spike in downloads and listenership. So we don't know what that was because of. Maybe it was 100. Maybe people are big Ed Robertson fans. I have no idea.
Maybe it's Russian bots.
Hey, we'll take it.
Yeah.
But we're going to ride the wave. So thank you to all the listeners for listening. And if you're tuning in for the first time, please make sure to hit up the subscribe button so you'll know when new episodes are available. And you can get that anywhere you get podcasts. iTunes, Google Play, SoundCloud, iHeartRadio app. Check it out.
Yeah, no, seriously, the subscribe button means the world to us. So thank you for doing that.
Yeah. Want to get to Richard Reed Parry and Marika Shaw?
Let's do it.
Hey, we're going to roll on this because this is a good story. we were trying to hail a cab, like in the middle of like Damon and Division, whatever that Wicker Park.
Yeah,
which is kind of like kind of tumbleweed vibes. Then it's a lot more built up now. And we were just trying to get a cab, and there was nothing. And then this lonely brown stretch limo pulls by, and we were like, we were kind of trying to hail a cab, and he just pulled over. And it was like, he was like, where do you want to go? And we told him the theater, and he was like, all right, $20. Sold.
20's not bad, actually.
I know.
Especially if you're in dire straits, you know?
Yeah.
All right, guys, we're going to start here. So I want to know your Montreal origin story. How did you guys meet?
The two of us as friends.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. I was dating one of your good buddies.
Oh.
Yeah. And then we would
This was
have
in the
dinners
90s.
together. This is in the 90s.
Really?
A similar era
like-
to the limo of
It must
us.
be. I think it must be 2000. I think it must be 2000.
It was either 99 or 2000. Maybe
It was 2000.
Where you could
It was
get up on the mic.
2001.
I'm producing this thing. I gotta order people around.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's how it works.
My mic technique.
Yeah.
But Richard,
Now,
you're
again, do it again,
Richard's
but with
great
feeling.
on the mic here. Yeah.
I do the same thing again, but with feeling.
So you were dating her friend.
I was dating her friend. We would have dinners together all the time,
Yeah.
and me and Marika hit it off. And one time we ran into each other on the street, and her eyes got all wide, and she said, "Hi, handsome." And I was like, "Oh my god, I love you too much." And then I stopped dating that lady, but we're still friends.
We are still friends.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a wonderful long friendship.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then when Arcade Fire released Neon Bible, we wanted to find another string player, and I knew that Marika was at a transition point in her life and maybe wanted to quit her job, and asked her if she wanted to come be in our band as her job for a while, which she did, and it was great. And then we got to travel around the world together for some years.
Pretty amazing.
Yeah,
It was pretty amazing.
it was.
So what years were that? As Neon Bible was 2006?
But I did play with you guys a little bit before.
Oh yeah, totally.
But
You
that
played
was
at the
that was a
very
longer
first.
traveling.
That was the first time we did a thing together. You played at the first launch of
Of
the
the EP.
first EP. That's right.
did, yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
With another dude. I forget that dude.
And then we were in and out of touch because I had met Regine and I were friends also in music
McGill.
school.
Right.
And so there was all these other
Connections.
happening. But
Right, that's right.
Richard, how did you meet the gang originally?
The what?
The rest of the members of the Arcade Fire, Wayne, Regine, all of them.
Many different stories. I mean, me and Tim and Jeremy were in a band together
Okay.
in Montreal. And I met Wynn by answering a want ad
Really?
for a roommate in a loft where you could make a lot of noise.
Wow.
Because it was over a bar. And I was like, well, that's great. That sounds good. And then I went there and I was like, well, I don't want to live here, but it's good to meet you. We got along. it was like a loft over a bar with no walls for rooms. You know, it's like sleep behind a curtain kind of vibe. And I was a little picky about such things. And then I also was friends with Wynn's old friend Josh, who they used to write songs together, and kind of the first time there was ever something called Arcade Fire was Josh and Wynn and another friend of theirs, Tim Kyle. Anyway, but we stayed in touch because we all had a lot in common and were into a lot of music, and I would just made friends with them, and our bands would play together in Montreal, and so we shared a lot of stages and liked each other's bands and would just hang out, and then just all started jamming together at various times.
You're from Toronto, though.
I was born in Toronto. Yeah.
Because my dear old friend is Ben Whiteley. And
Oh yeah, I used to babysit Ben Whiteley.
Yeah, Ben and I played baseball together at Christie Pitts, and his dad and my dad were coaches.
Yeah, his dad recorded my dad's records and my sister's records.
Oh, okay. I didn't put that together.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
our families were. I grew up like deeply entrenched in the folk scene in Toronto.
Yeah. Well, where do you grow up in Toronto?
Right in the middle of the annex, like on Palmerston, and then
Oh,
we
really?
moved to Lippincott.
Oh, Palmerston. What?
Ulster.
I'm at Major in Ulster.
There you go.
I went to Harvard Collegiate.
Neighbors. Yeah, and then college in like Lippincott and just above college.
Oh, that's so funny. What high school did you go to?
I moved to Ottawa for high school. I went to Canterbury.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. My parents are still at Major in Ulster. Right
There you go.
Yeah. That's funny.
Some deep Toronto geography
Yeah.
there for our listeners.
Yeah.
People are like, stop talking about these street
Yeah.
intersections.
Yeah.
I am not familiar with those
That's
corners.
when the houses on those blocks cost $30,000.
Well, my parents bought in 1980 for like 70 grand or something like that.
Yeah, we bought in 77 for 40.
Yeah.
It's
You got a deal.
outrageous.
Yeah, but we don't have it anymore.
So one of the things I wanted to talk about was Plus One, because so you were touring with the band, and then at some point you decided to go and focus on Plus One exclusively.
Yeah.
What was the sort of decision making behind that, or the thought process behind that?
I think there was a lot of different things that kind of came together at the same time. Mostly, throughout like touring with the band and just seeing the level of impact I got increasingly interested in the social impact part of it and the kind of like power of convening that was happening every night. And in particular, I think with this band, which is just an extraordinarily compassionate group of humans, consistently thinking about these things is like, how can we connect and how can we make these things more human? And one of those pieces was the $1 per ticket. I was learning a lot with the organization Partners in Health that we were working with in Haiti. I ended up spending like a lot more time with them off tour. I would head down to Boston and go attend classes at Harvard and like learn more and read. And it was just something like that concurrently with all the incredible music stuff that was going on, I was just also interested in and passionate about. And the conversations that we would all have together was really like, why isn't this standard? Why isn't this normal? Why are more people not doing this? And so some of those conversations are also like, what are those barriers? Do we need an entity that's going to remove those barriers so that we can kind of scale that?
And once upon a time, people did do this, and it was called tithing, and it was because everyone went to church, and tithing was part of what you did.
Passing around the basket?
No, tithing meant giving a portion of your income to charity and to people who needed it. And that was like, that's like, it says you should do that in a lot of places in the Bible. It was like, you should tithe some of your crop and give it to someone whose crops didn't do well that year. It's like, it's a pretty old archetypal human idea that, and we had talked about that earlier before the like Plus One as a name or as a mechanism or as a method developed as that. We were like, how do we figure out a way of tithing or what we're doing? Because it is a good thing to do, and especially in the kind of hubbub of having a band or having any organization, anything come into a great public success and into this kind of whirlwind of, travel and kind of attention and media and the whole thing. How do you ground that and give that like healthy roots? You know what I mean? Like, how do you keep that from just like lifting off into this weird bubble of like debauchery and like just the stories you hear about rock and roll days of yore, that was like not a particularly long, it's not a
self-indulgence.
Yeah, self-indulgent and like not a life that necessarily lends itself to longevity, as an artist or as a human. And we were always really kind of a mindset of like, how do we do this in a way that has longevity? How do we do this in a way where it's renewing itself as you are doing it? It's feeding into itself in a positive way and not just turning into a weird echo chamber.
Yeah, it brings you back to reality in such a great
egotism.
way. Yeah, it's like when you're when you're surrounded by people who aren't doing what you're doing. I mean, they're like in Haiti, or they're nurses or doctors or social workers, and you're like, oh yeah, that's what they do all day, and that is way more important on a certain level or in a different type of importance. Mm-hmm. And I find that to be so refreshing, and it's like it just grounds everything, as you say.
Sure. I mean, anyone doing honest, good, positive work that is trying to be of benefit to their community is doing the good. That's the good work.
Yeah.
That's what we should all be doing,
Yeah. And also what was really powerful, I think, was like really focusing on what as musicians the band was good at.
Right.
And so it's like, let's do what we do best, knowing that we are not like global health delivery experts.
Right. Sure. We are not Doctors Without Borders, but we are good at being our band, and we can give money to Doctors Without Borders.
And we're moving all of these tickets, and we've got this platform. So
exactly.
It's like, let's take a buck.
Exactly.
What does it matter?
Let's always focus and let ourselves be really good at what we are.
Yeah, I firmly believe that people should do what they're good at.
And then we also bring resources to the people that are also really good at what they're good at.
Yeah.
Which is changing some of these things that we're all really mad about.
Yeah.
And then the inequity. I often feel like we actually really, like, just the notion of charity always is about the giver to me. Like, that word charity always seems to me to be about the giver.
Right.
And, with Plus One, really what it's about is like a very pragmatic solidarity
Right.
with people.
Right. It's solidarity.
Like,
it's redirecting.
It's like shoulder to shoulder. It's like, here we
redirecting
are.
resources.
It's not like this like grand gesture of charity and like I give to you and let me make that a really loud statement.
Of course.
So
I actually care about you over there who I've never met, and I have access to funds. You know, I have access to an amount of money that I don't need. Therefore, let's send it to someone who does
redirect
really,
it to
just
these places that need it.
redirecting resources, because resources in this world are hideously not proportionately distributed.
Well, I mean, even having the platform to sort of do that, right? And with the sort of like attention that you guys receive, when you were sort of playing music or starting out, or you guys went on this journey, did you envision it would ever be this big? Like, did you, not at all, eh? You were just making music and holy shit, this thing is blowing up.
Yeah. I think I had you can gauge early on that people are really interested and really responding to the thing that you're doing. So I knew that people were interested in us, but it wasn't, you just can't think those kinds of things really.
But when you're a kid and you start, playing music, do you have a sort of vision of like, oh, I one day want to be in a big stage?
Oh, sure. I used to like play a guitar in front of the mirror and scream.
That's what I'm getting at, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Totally. I knew I had like a huge amount of energy, and music was the way to channel it out. And, and deep love of music and kind of infinite fascination and love of many different kinds of music. And I didn't have a solid plan of what form that was going to take, but I knew that I was going to live music one way or another.
Make it your life, a career out of it.
Oh.
Well, we are at the Junos, and so like I'm always fascinated by like for a show like this, how you sort of prep, how you decide to make sort of how you're going to do the show, or even something like Saturday Night Live, which I guess was last weekend. How, I guess, like how much you guys talk about the ideas of presentation and outfits, and is it like a cohesive sort of democracy, or how do you guys like sort of plan these things?
Kind of changes occasion to occasion. There's no like method that we use every time. I mean, we are a democracy as a band. If anyone is not comfortable with the thing, then we're not doing it. And we don't have the kind of organizational structure that we have around us isn't telling us what to do ever. They're sort of suggesting, it would be great to play SNL, which is kind of a given for us. It's always sort of the dream. But, the different things come up and you have to spend your energy wisely, and, you can't do everything, but we really engage with what the thing is. This would look good. These are the songs that we're releasing at that time. What is the idea of those songs? Let's try and go with the sort of, as much as you can, go try and do something aesthetically that relates to the songs.
Are those conversations easy between band members? Like, because sharing a vision, it can take a number of conversations to collectively agree on like, okay, gold glittery suits is what we ought. Like, I know that's
those we knew that was the easy one because we used those. Our dear friend Renata made those for us early on, and we shot a video for that song in those suits, and we took a bunch of photos in those suits, and they're like literally covered in gold leaf. And it's like gold dust is falling off of them all the time while you're playing. And so we were like, okay, we were putting those away. If we get to play Saturday Night Live, we will wear those on Saturday Night Live.
Okay, so that was an easy one. But other times when they're like, my vision for, this performance or this song is drastically different, or is it the conversations?
I mean, we're all on a very related wavelength. It's like artistically and aesthetically and musically, obviously, which is why we work well together and perform well together and make music well together. But it takes many forms. Sometimes someone has a really strong idea. Sometimes somebody else has a really strong idea. Sometimes you care a lot about a particular aspect of what we're doing, and sometimes you don't. And it's kind of it's a lot of push-pull and a lot of bowing out if you don't care that much about a particular particular decision. And we also it's like we trust each other's motivations and we trust each other's instincts, so like no one is gonna it's not like there's a dude showing up being like, all right, everyone's in gold lame. I'm thinking like, I'm thinking Fred Astaire. I'm thinking like boobs.
No!
I'm thinking like we don't have one of those. We don't have any of those.
Cool.
Yeah.
When they ask you to be in the sketch, the Canadian sketch with Bill Hader, are you nervous? Like, oh shit, I'm going to have a line and I'm going to do this, or are you excited?
They didn't even really. They were like, "Oh, you guys are in a sketch," and we were like, "Oh, okay, great." And we didn't know what we'd see a script or anything until we were just out there in front of the camera looking at cue cards. You're like, "Oh, there's my name." Okay.
Really? It's literally that on the fly.
This time it was, yeah. We've done skits before, but usually they were pre-recorded. A couple of them I guess weren't, but we did the ones we really put the time into before were like digital shorts, and we worked on them ahead of time. So
Right.
I have to sound check now. So carry on this interview. Sorry, I never have to leave in the middle of an interview, but
this time you do.
Hey, it's the Junos, man. I guess another question I was going to ask is, I mean, how much,
I'll see you guys in
like when you're sort of in a band in the beginning and you guys are sort of like, certain things can sort of shake you or you can be super precious about things. And on the East Coast, your second song on SNL came in halfway through.
Yeah.
Which was
Not halfway through. It was 20 seconds.
20
in.
seconds. Okay, but so as a viewer, I'm like, wow, that's somebody fucked up.
Apparently, they've never done that before.
Yeah, I've never seen. I watch SNL every weekend, and I was like, that is the weirdest thing ever.
Yeah.
Afterward, are you guys like, how do you sort of approach? I guess how you feel about it. Like, is it something where, like, maybe early on you would have been
it's out of your
devastated?
hands.
It is, but I
Yeah.
mean, are you like, I guess you just let it go?
I honestly, I was like, oh well.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't have time to, like, who has time to feel bad about something? It was fine. It was just clearly like a weird broadcast glitch. It wasn't like we fell on our faces and someone's,
But I mean, does
junk
that
was
take
hanging out of their pants?
exactly?
Like,
but like, does that take time to have that outlook? Like, whereas early on, like everyone. In their,
oh yeah,
you know what I mean.
Early on, I had a horrible. When we played on the Suburbs, one of my bandmates, not right as we started playing the song "We Used to Wait," one of my bandmates sort of flung himself into the headstock of my guitar, and all the strings went out of tune as I went like a semitone out of tune as I started to play, and it was one of the worst performance experiences of my entire life. It was the bad dream that musicians have. It's like, oh, I am in front of millions of people at this moment, and my machine just stopped working. And it was horrible. Yeah, I still feel bad thinking about it, but just because I felt so bad at that time,
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I've never not enjoyed something that I thought was a good performance or a cool song or a good piece of work because of glitches. Mm-hmm. So once you realize that about how you perceive those things, it's like it doesn't make a difference to me if I'm watching an old video of Paul Simon or something on Saturday Night Live and there's a weird, someone plays a weird note, or it's like it doesn't actually bother me seeing those things if it's someone that I like what they do. So why kill yourself over something that goes not quite as intended,
Totally.
Yeah.
Marika, I mean, talk about like sort of the origin of Plus One and like sort of like, I guess I want to get to like, you talked a bit about like the idea of, was it
tithing?
Tithing, which is a new word for me.
Exactly.
You've
People
educated
people
me
don't
a
know
bit.
this word, but it's like this was really common. This was a common practice once upon a time. Yeah.
And so like you're now solely focused on this.
Mm-hmm.
So what was the origin and how did you mentioned going to school and all that stuff and sort of like going down to Harvard.
I mean, I sat in on Harvard. I don't want to
Snuck into some classes.
I snuck in. I was grateful to have some really sweet invites to come sit in on classes at Harvard.
Yeah.
But Harvard, if you're listening,
thank you for the free education.
Harvard 2025. I'm kidding.
Harvard, if you're listening, we're square, right? We're square?
We're good,
Okay,
right? We're
good.
fine. We're okay.
Like, did you ever see yourself sort of solely focused on something like this?
I thought I was going to be a doctor.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So I kind of was in a music career in a way that was like I was good at it and I loved it and it was where my people were and my community. And so that was something that I was always like seeking, was like, where is your people? And can we find passion in that group of people? And can we share something together? And that was music for me. And I got good at it and I enjoyed it. And so this kind of life evolved, but kind of like for a long time, I really thought that like after like whatever that means, which now I know on this later side of life is not necessarily correct. But like I kind of thought like at that there would be a juncture where I would go to medical school and be a doctor and do kind of like social medicine.
Sure.
And I think as I started, spending more time with Partners in Health and working with the band and working more with our volunteers and kind of getting in that space, it was really evident to me that there's this incredible opportunity to create huge impact here. And looking around, I don't want to make it sound like other people weren't doing stuff. There's our musicians and our industry have been tied to incredible impact all the way through. And we're, showing up and we're doing big benefit concerts and we are, giving portions of ticket sales and talking about the things that are really important. And so artists have always been a part of that. And at the same time, one of the things we were learning is like, it's the daily disaster of inequity and the daily disaster of poverty often that is creating illness and death.
Sure.
And so what this...
And it makes those acute disasters so much worse.
That makes the acute disaster so much worse,
Which is
but
usually
also,
where the attention comes in, right? It's when the acute disaster happens is when people notice for a minute, and then there's an outburst of feeling and goodwill, and
exactly,
and then it kind of peters off again. But it's like it is a daily,
but the infrastructure is flawed, so like basically when something like that happens, it's like, oh my god, like what is in place, and then people will focus.
Then the reaction is often this like big awareness campaign and this big like charity concert and this big boom. But we don't address it on our side on the daily either. Mm-hmm. And so what Plus One was really about is addressing this like, on the one hand, we have this well of goodwill, and occasionally we had these explosions of like really important impact. Yeah. And so can we also address the daily on the goodwill side, not just on the impact side? And so that's that's really our space, is like where Plus One came in, looking around, and we were talking to it was like super nepotistic. It was like very organic beginnings where we were having conversations with our friends and other bands, and like the National came to us as like the second band. We're like, can we do this too? Can you help us do this? We played a show together in Chicago. I remember those shows in Chicago. Like it was like 3 nights in a row, and that was a Plus One show. And from that night, they started doing. It wasn't called Plus One at that point. They started adding $1 per ticket, and we were kind of helping them. And it was going to Partners in Health, and we met the Vampire Weekend guys, and the same thing. So it started like very organically. And as we looked around, and for me, I really wanted to learn: is there a space for this? Like, why is nobody doing this? Why isn't this standard? How do we make this standard? How do we turn this like pretty simple methodology into like an impact model?
Yeah.
And that's really where then this entity or this organization Plus One came out, which is really about leveraging the goodwill and harnessing that.
That's all there.
And bringing,
like everybody wants to do better for the people around them and the world around them. If everyone is caught up in their lives, and it's hard to figure out how to make an impact that is meaningful or is useful. And so the easiest thing to do for most people is give a small amount of money to something that they trust.
A lot of the barriers that we found were just like time and energy.
Yeah,
like it's not.
Yeah, totally.
So
if you make it easy,
and also like, how do you give do you know that the place that you're giving money to is the right place, or like
how do you navigate who's trustworthy?
The best conversation that we have with an artist at the beginning of a conversation is like, what are you mad at? It's not like, how do you want to be charitable? That's the wrong question.
Right.
The right question is, what are you mad at? What are you worried is going to happen in the world if we don't address this
What's
thing?
bothering you?
What's bothering you? Then what Plus One does is we get to bring you, like, here are the people in that space that are actually making the tangible change that, or this is a really important way. These are the different lenses that we can look at this. So take homelessness. There's an acute problem with homelessness in a lot of cities around the world.
Sure.
Particularly in North America. So we can tackle the acute homelessness and providing shelter and providing food and health care and all these things. We can also look at it from the lens of like, there's a lot of issues causing homelessness. There's a lot of women that are escaping conjugal violence that find themselves on the street. There are a lot of young trans youth that are finding themselves on the street. There are a lot of vets with incredible mental health issues that need to be addressed on the streets. So what if we also tackled those issues at the same time? And we're looking at root causes. And so in all of those conversations, what we're able to do is have a learning opportunity with people that are literally holding microphones every night, so that we can become more informed and more authentic in how we think about these social impact problems, as well as really figure out modeling for the fans that see us of like, oh, that's how I can engage, or I've never thought about it that way, or now I've discovered an organization that I didn't know existed, or a way to help that I didn't know existed.
Cool. Well, I got one more question. I guess lastly, just sort of a functional question about the band is at every stage of being in a band, there's always obstacles to sort of like in how you operate. What would be, at the level you guys are at now, the biggest challenge you find in your sort of day-to-day operations as, you know, people, a unit, a band?
I mean, the reasons that you do something change as you grow. You know, like your impetus, your daily impetus for doing the thing that you're doing just changes. Like it's different when you're 20 and it's different when you're 25 and it's different when you're 30 and it's different when you're 35. You know, it's just like
your motivations, your driving force.
Yeah. And it can be strange to look at the thing that you do 20 years later and know that you'd never set out at this point in your life. If you hadn't done this before, you wouldn't start doing this thing now necessarily. You know what I mean?
Sure.
But instinctively, but when you were 20, instinctively you did. You know what I mean?
I do.
To me, just try and find reasons and find the genuine drive, find what can genuinely drive you to do some version of the thing that you're doing that is a good thing, that's a thing you believe in, that continues to support the older version of itself, the previous version of it, the younger version of itself. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, like you're doing the same thing that you've been doing, but your motivations have changed. So it's like, how do you continue to do the same thing with the same...
But your motivations also haven't changed exactly, but I'm not explaining myself very well, but to just try and find an authenticity to the energy that you're putting behind what you're doing as you get older, I think, is difficult in rock music specifically.
Sure.
Because it's sort of a genre of youth in a lot of ways. Not exclusively so, but you don't find a lot of people in the later stages of their life starting rock bands, but you find a lot more people in the younger stages of their life starting rock bands. So I think collectively and as individuals within this organization, you know, that we are, within being the band that we are, just finding an authentic source for what we draw on when we make music together and when we perform together.
Yeah.
And doing that in a way that feels real and feels honest and feels authentic.
Thank you both so much for your time. I really appreciate it, guys.
Welcome.
Thank
nice
you.
to talk to you.
Welcome to, I think, one of the most exciting desserts we've ever had on the Mike on Much podcast. Max, joining us on the phone from his home, I believe, in Hamilton, Ontario, is our Papa culture aficionado, Shane Christian Cunningham. Shane, we haven't talked to you since you became like a big daddy, man.
My heart is pounding.
Yeah, how's it going? We don't know the story.
Yeah, well, I was trying to figure out a good way to tell the story of the birth, because yes, the rumor is true. I am a dad now. I am officially Papa culture.
Rumor.
So I thought that since I'm one of the first champagne boys to give birth, or
first male in the history of humankind to give birth. You
yeah, well, if you've seen Junior, that documentary. But are you guys? I'm sure Max is ready to have a few puppies soon, and I'm sure that might be in yours, even Mike, in the future some point. But would you guys want to hear some advice, or wait, what am I calling it? Tips?
Yeah, give some tips. Give some pointers.
So first off, it's your wife or girlfriend who you've impregnated is going to be very worried about the pain factor.
Sure.
and you're going to instinctually probably do what I did, which is when I'm about to go in for something really painful, I want people to tell me it's not going to be as bad as I think it is, like you're going to make it through it. And I started telling Alex that she like had the perfect body for labor. Like I was like,
It's a weird thing to say.
I've never seen a sexier labor body in my life.
You are ready to take this
no,
pain.
but I was like, Alex, listen, like you're like a beast, right? Like you're like, you know, I was like, you're a beauty, but you're also the beast. Like, you know, your body is like made for birth. She has this like really tiny like waist with the huge hips and all that. I was like, oh, it's going to be good. It's not even going to be that bad. I said, in fact, I researched it a little bit, and I was like, you know how I had a colonoscopy without any anesthetic? I read that can actually be more painful than even birth, which I have like a theory. I've realized that women actually kind of like how hard it is and the pain and to go through that and be like the toughest thing. So they do not want any man saying that he's been through something more painful.
Okay.
Yeah, don't
Noted.
diminish what she's going through.
So I wrote down what the best thing to say is.
Oh.
And here it is.
Okay.
So babe, it's going to be painful as hell. It's going to hurt so bad that you're going to wish you were fucking dead. But trust me, in the end, once you look at our little bundle in the eye, a bundle that our love created, it will all be worth it. And then you just maintain eye contact.
Okay. Good.
That's great.
Tip
That's
number
great
one.
advice.
That's very
That's
practical.
tip number one.
Yeah.
Okay. Tip number two.
Wait a second. You're jumping ahead. What did she say when you told her that it was comparable to your colonoscopy?
Oh, she hated it. She was so pissed at me. She goes, you don't ever say that. I want to hear how bad it's going to hurt. And basically what I just read is what she wanted to hear.
Okay.
Gotcha.
But
So,
You should write this down, Shane,
Yeah.
and tell all your fucking idiot friends.
Because women like how hard it is, and they like that like honor that they like went through this huge battle, I guess.
yeah, they're like Klingons.
Yes, exactly. Whatever that means. Okay, so number two, I'm calling it the hours of labor myth. So you've probably heard women go like, I was in labor for 20 hours, right?
Yeah.
So I thought that meant like literally I was going to be holding Alex's hand for hours on end as she was going to be calling me like a motherfucker, and I'd be like having like a cold ice cloth on her head and shit, right? Like that's what and then maybe a bucket so she could like barf into if the pain got too crazy, and like a wooden spoon for her to clamp down on. I thought it was going to be like that from like movies and stuff. But there's 3 induction periods. So my wife was induced. So on Thursday, as you'll recall, Mike, we were at work and we kind of had an emotional goodbye.
Yeah.
And I was like, the baby's happening tomorrow on Thursdays. And, by Friday, I'm going to be a dad. Okay. But what actually happens is when they induce, they just put like a gel up your vagina that kind of gets things stimulated. And then they send you home.
Ah.
Are you sure? Wait, are you sure you were at a hospital?
That man was very unshaven and smelly. But so they send us home. So we're watching like the Larry Sanders Show and The Simpsons and stuff. I'm like, okay. And then it's not really taking. So we go back to the hospital. And this is like Friday now. So a whole day's gone by. And this is when I'm thinking I'm like going to be a dad at this point. No, go back. They put a balloon up her vagina.
Oh my goodness.
Up her cervix, rather.
Right.
Not that I really know what the difference is. And then, so they shove a balloon up there and they start inflating it. And that's supposed to like dilate her. So I'm like, oh, this thing's really going to get cooking. But then no, it doesn't. So we go back home again. And it's like, she's perfectly calm. In fact, they told us we could go out for dinner.
Wow.
If we wanted to. They're like, you guys have your last dinner before your little one arrives. I'm like, really? Like, we're going to go to the keg and she's got like a balloon up her pussy? Like, but I was like, okay. So then I guess she dilated enough because the balloon actually falls out. So like the balloon just plopped out. It was covered in like weird stuff. Like it was kind of gross looking. And then we go back and they're like, oh, good. Okay. It's this thing. The baby's going to come. And then we just chill for like hours and hours, but like no pain, nothing. We're just having conversations and going on Instagram and stuff. And I'm kind of feeling foolish because everyone is messaging me like I should have the baby by now. And then they're like, you just go on a walk. So then I'm just walking around with Alex. And then it's like midnight now. Now it's actually my birthday. So all Thursdays passed, all Fridays passed. Now it's actually like baby's going to happen on my birthday, which is May 12th, which is on Saturday. So I'm like, this is kind of cool. And then Alex's parents come by.
To wish you a happy birthday?
Yeah, to wish me a happy birthday. And they said, oh, do you want anything? I said, yeah, a coffee, because this is going to be like a long night, because I'm picturing once it happens, I'm going to be doing the hand-holding thing for hours and hours. Mm-hmm. Then they get me the coffee. I put it to the side, and I start trying to go to sleep because – I got to get my rest for when the birth actually happens, which I'm assuming is going to be at like 3 a.m. Anyway, just as I'm about to nod off, a doctor comes in and he shoves his hand in Alex's vagina and he goes, oh, this baby's coming now. I'm like, what? So I just hop up on, I was on the shitty chair sleeping. I hop up and I chug my coffee, which was cold at the time anyway. I just chug it. And I'm thinking they're going to be slapping the gloves on me and everything. Like I'm going to be kind of a part of it.
Shane, scrub in.
Okay. So I pull up the Cobra Cam too, start filming.
Of course you did. Priorities, first things first.
And I'm like, push, baby. She does one push. The baby's head pops out.
Whoa.
Wow. Just like that.
I'm like, what? It took 12 minutes, Max. No joke.
12 minutes.
12 minutes.
Wow.
And then, so I'm like, holy shit. And then, the baby just popped out. And then I asked her how bad it was. And she said it wasn't even that bad.
Yeah.
She said it wasn't even as bad as a colonoscopy.
There you go.
It wasn't. A colonoscopy is worse in this case. I'm sure for other women. And I must add, she did do the, what's it called when they shoot the thing up your spine? Epidural.
Oh yeah.
Okay, cool. So she was on an epidural. Sure. I'm just saying colonoscopy with no stuff, no anesthesia is more painful than birth with an epidural. That was my theory. I'm not saying it's always right, but I will say in this case, it was right. Because when the baby's head comes out, it's called the ring of fire or whatever. Mm-hmm. And she didn't even feel that part. Like that's supposed to be the really painful part that even transcends an epidural. Did not. So some women, I hope this puts your mind at ease if you haven't given birth yet, that it might not be all the pain that it's the media hypes it up to be.
It's fake news.
You heard it here first.
Birth pain is fake news, y'all. I'm here to tell you.
Okay. Another thing is if you have
I think we're going to get letters from our listeners, Max, messages from women that are like, he doesn't know anything.
Yeah, that's okay. That's always been Shane's role.
Okay, so I have omphalophobia, which is the fear of belly buttons. Okay. And anyone who knows me knows I'm like very uncomfortable if anyone goes near my belly button or looking at someone's belly button because when I was born, I think I got the guy didn't do the umbilical cord right or it got infected and I actually had an outie belly button, which is the worst type of belly button you can have. And especially if you're a girl, right? Because sometimes you want to wear the belly tops and it looks weird. But I didn't know that they make the dad cut the belly button. So if you have this condition that I have, you're going to be put in a very awkward position. Because you can't say no. They're like, all right, Dad. And he grabs the Cobra Cam and he starts filming it. And I go to cut it and I'm just feeling so uncomfortable. I kind of miss it. Then I go again. I don't cut it hard enough. I don't even want to do it. And I go again, still not cut. Took me 3 tries to cut the belly button.
This is great. Alex has been carrying a child in her belly for 9 months. She's gone through so many physical changes.
I might go as far to say that cutting the belly button is worse than the actual labor.
Man, it sounds you had a very harrowing experience, Shane. I don't know how you did it, man. I don't know how you got through it.
I'm sweating just talking about it. Honestly, I'm beating out of my chest right now. And then I did it wrong or something because the belly button is supposed to kind of, the umbilical cord rather, is supposed to kind of hang off the child's stomach for 2 weeks. It's already fallen off.
Oh, so Lucy's going to have the same trauma that's the cycle, when people pass down their trauma to their child. Well, you did the same thing with your belly button to Lucy. She's going to grow up scarred.
Well, that's the thing. And what's Alex's favorite thing to wear?
Belly tops.
Belly tops.
Yeah.
Belly tops. So I'm very concerned because I know this kid's going to want to do that. I know this is getting long. I'm just going to go through the list. Feel free to cut all this shit out. But okay.
No, we're keeping it.
Other thing is, okay, people told me the babies always come out looking like aliens. Like that they come out looking like covered in like white goop, and their head's going to be all misshapen, and they're not really going to look cute. So prepare for that. That is not true in all cases, because our baby came out looking fully formed and like perfect. And in fact, like obviously you guys know, I was concerned about the baby looking too much like me with kind of some features that I might not want a little girl to have that I have. But I also had a fear that the kid wasn't going to look like me at all.
We don't have to get into those fears, Shane.
Yeah, well, around the time Alex and I were having some rough times 9 months ago. You're going to Atlanta again? I like gambling. Okay, but the baby, honestly, the baby came out looking like kind of like a badass kind of Latina chick. Like it actually looked like Jessie Reyes, if you know who that is. Like it had like a little scowl on her face, and she had these huge lips and this super tan skin.
Could she sing?
And I was like, no, she just kind of cried.
Okay.
So I was like, oh my God, this kid looks like so much like me, because I look like a Latina chick. No, because I have a tan, and one of the qualities I have is I have big lips. So I'm like, geez, out of all the things she could get, that my tan and my lips, that's amazing qualities for a young girl to have. And she kind of looked badass. But although it didn't look like an alien, what I realized is 24 hours later, the baby totally changes in its the way its skin color, everything. And then it just ended up looking like the palest, whitest version of Alex ever. It's just like a normal like white girl baby now.
Okay.
So it's like the picture I put on my Instagram that I was all proud of isn't how the baby actually looks now. Now it's just like the whitest bread baby in the world.
Okay.
Which
you can't win them all, but fair enough. Yeah.
It's still very cute, but it just looks a lot like Alex and nothing like me.
And nothing like Jessie Reyes.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. Another thing. I'm just going to keep going here.
Yeah.
Okay. Beating the no sleep thing. Since I have insomnia, I thought the no sleep thing would be no problem. Like I actually thought I could beat it. Like I'd just be like, oh, this is going to be easy. The kid will be born. We'll work out a system. It's impossible to actually get sleep for the first 72 hours. One, I had a coffee at 1:30 a.m. and the kid came out 12 minutes later, right? So I'm just jacked all day. Two, they don't always give you a private room. So at 2 a.m, they put us in a room with 3 other crying babies, 1 hospital bed, and doctors come in every 20 minutes. Wow. And it's like, they'll be like, just checking the baby's heart. And they'll be like, just checking the hearing. And they'll be like, hair inspector. And like, it's all this weird stuff that does not end for 2 days. So get the fuck out of the hospital as soon as possible. Sometimes after 24 hours, they'll just let you bail. But for us, for some stupid reason, we ended up staying 48 hours.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And no one gives a shit about the dads. Like, honestly, nobody cares. Like, I just had this heroin belly button thing going on. It's like, they don't give you your own bed. You have to kind of sleep in this very uncomfortable chair that's supposed to pull out, but it's extremely uncomfortable. And I wanted to do skin to skin, where the baby comes out and you're supposed to like lay on its chest. So I was wearing a robe, but everyone just acts like you're some like weirdo. Like one time Alex was in the washroom and a doctor came in and she was like, she walked around the curtain, but she was talking before she got through the curtain. She was like, how's mommy and her princess? And then she saw me just chilling with the baby on the chest with no mom.
And you're in a robe.
Yeah. She's like, oh. She's like, where's your wife? I was like, oh, she's just in the washroom. She's like, did you just have a shower or something? I'm like, no, I'm like doing skin to skin. And she's like, oh, and then like walks away like I'm some pervert or something. So
Wait, When I saw you in a bathrobe, I wondered if you were at some fancy hospital because I don't think I've ever seen a father in a bathrobe like that at the hospital. Did you just bring your own bathrobe?
No, it was my birthday, so Alex got me a bathrobe. But I thought it was the best thing, and it turns out dads don't do that. All other dads were like wearing like ties and stuff and like looking like how they do in sitcoms. But
You should have just told that woman, "It's my birthday." Okay.
Back off, lady.
But yeah, so maybe don't do the skin to skin or wait till you get home because honestly, the dads are totally looked at as lesser than.
Sure. We should start a support group for you, Shane.
Yeah.
You've been through a lot.
I'm finishing up here. I got just 3 more. Okay.
Three more.
Vagina babies can still pee in your face.
Okay.
I was told that only penis babies, when you're changing the diaper, the pee can get high enough to your face. But our baby, when I changed the diaper, it like squirted in my face.
Okay.
With
Noted.
piss everyone.
Okay.
Vagina baby.
Yep.
Everyone says the boobs do get bigger. That is true. I've gone up 1 cup size. I'm kidding. Of course. So Alex had nice small size boobs before, but now she's kind of more like Pam Anderson-y, so that's good.
Does she know you're sharing all this stuff? Is she
No,
sleeping
no.
in another room with the baby while you're just going off?
No, she went to Atlanta actually.
With the baby. She knew.
Yeah,
She-
very important visit.
Come meet your father. That's it. That's all. That's our episode. Thank you to Shane for calling in. You know, it's like baby's only a few days old.
Yeah, that's crazy. Man, Shane's a dad.
He is a dad. You can find us obviously at Michael Much on Twitter and Instagram. Jenna Gregory's the best. She does all the artwork.
Tara Paquette, put it all together.
You know it. Thank you to all the listeners who tune in every week because it means the world to us. And it was interesting posting that 100th episode and seeing all the interaction on Twitter. We do see it, and it's pretty great. So thank you for doing that, and please keep listening.
And I think Shane had a note that we're going to put up some of his Cobra Cam stuff.
Yes, as you heard in the dessert, Shane had the Cobra Cam out. We're going to post some of that on our socials, and he wanted to make a point of us saying he will cut out all of the gross shit.
Yeah. So follow us on Instagram and Twitter, Mike on Much.
If you want to see the birth of young Lucy.
Yeah.
The Mike on Much podcast is produced by Max Kerman. I'm your host, Mike Veerman. See you next week if we don't die on the weekend.
Boom.